It's a great question. I think there's always many things that you want to do with a business, many, many more than you can actively do at any given time. But I've really chosen to focus heavily on the combination of where electrical design and panel fabrication meet, because I think it has such an outsized impact on what customers receive from us and our own performance as a company.
So, Wright, thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. I always find it intriguing, but more particularly, I think it's valuable for those other customers who are looking at their own journey. And when I think about what you just said, there's a change here that goes on from incrementalization, if I use that word, to a really significant change in direction. Can you expound upon that a little bit for us?
Oh, sure. It's there's a very clear moment in time for me when things change. We had been using EPLAN for about 12 years, mostly for automotive applications and very large quantities of drawings on projects. And we were using some of the features well, but I also knew that we weren't tapping into the full potential of all the different platforms that EPLAN offered and all the different features of the platforms that we already had. So we were using it well, but we weren't tapping into all the possibilities. Michael Yeshka came, and they were only here for 45 minutes, but it fundamentally shifted my view of what we could do. And the way they did that was by explaining, just giving me a vision of what was possible, both in panel fabrication and in design, and how they could be integrated, and telling me about customers, EPLAN customers, that I should look at videos and get a feel for what the state of the art really looked like. I mean, that was, so what's the key moment of change? I had a sense of what was possible, but having really a partner that would tell me, okay, here are very specific examples. And then essentially our rate of change went from a respectable rate of change to really a much more accelerated approach to adopting these tools. And that caused our efficiency to go up tremendously. And we're continuing along that journey of change.
Well, thanks for using a very important word, by the way, partner. I think that's how we both feel about the relationship we built. And, it is working together that I think we get the most out of it all in total. I want to talk a little bit about, though, you had a meeting with Andrew and Michael. You knew something more was there in the back of your mind, but now you're a manager of an entire organization. I think the last time I checked with you, 75 roughly employees, and now you want to embark upon a new journey. How do you do that with an organization? There's a big element of change management here. Walk us through your vision around leading that change through your organization, and more so, how do you instill and sustain that same mindset that you have with your entire team?
I think fundamentally, organizations don't change in a lasting way based on one person. You have to have everybody share the vision, and you have to have common conversations where people are having conversations with each other, so that organically you're all heading in the same direction. But a leader like me is not going to cause us to move forward. I may help sketch out the vision, but it's the people here in this office and in this shop that get excited about what's possible and decide to actually make it a reality. Those are the people that cause us to move. I indicate the direction, and they actually make the beast move, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's no easy thing.
It's a lot more than just training, though. We've been involved with you, and we've trained a number of your people. But when you think about how do you instill that mindset, it's about getting them to share your vision too, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, and it's about having a greater vision than the work at hand on any given day. So there's always, what is the fastest way to do today's work by the end of the day? And that's so easy to fall into the trap of that's That's our mission, is the work for today, the work for this week, the work for this month. And that doesn't often leave enough room for what do we want to look like 3 years from now. And you mentioned training, and that's been a huge critical component of this, is some of the training classes we've had, and even the conversations that my colleagues have had inside of EPLAN training classes, where I recall several of them taking a pro panel class and having very collaborative discussions about what the possibilities were. And if I can ignite that type of creative, inventive thinking of what does the future look like, then my job becomes much easier. And a heavy lift of moving us to the future becomes a nudge, and passionate people take it from there and move us to where I would love to see us go.
Truly becomes a sea change at that point. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, that's an interesting question, and it's something I'm very passionate about, because a lot of people ask me about tools, like whether it's EPLAN design tools, to increase engineering efficiency that you spoke of, but also tools like the Rittal automation systems Perforex machine that helps us be far more effective and efficient at doing the physical panel fabrication process. When you look at those tools, everybody wants to look at return on investment, which is great. And I'm a business leader, and I'll be the first to say, that's my first question, sure. But what's my second question? My second question is, how does this transform us as a business? And when you're asking simply, what is the efficiency return of a Perforex, or what is the efficiency return of a design automation tool, you often miss the greater point. And the greater point is not just what's the impact on the bottom line, which is your profitability, but what's the impact on the top line, which is when your customers are coming in and you have to say, we're full, we're at capacity right now because we're manually cutting holes in our panels, which we were 3 years ago when I started that conversation. Or we have too much design work right now and all of our people are covered up for several weeks. And so you're having to tell a customer, not right now, okay, which to me is the absolute worst thing. I want to be able to say yes. When a piece of equipment not only makes us more efficient and drives money to the bottom line, that's great. But an even bigger impact to me is being able to say yes more. If we can do more volume here, then we change what this company is able to do for customers. And that's huge to me.
Really changes your dynamics with the customer, I think, in the end. Yeah, very, very important point. When I think of, you talk about a journey. Thinking back to your early days, I want to come back to that. How did you decide to move? I think you said, I always had in the back of my mind that there was something more, but sometimes you get busy and you're trying to make those decisions. Maybe you're looking at the ROI, or maybe you're just kind of stuck in first gear, not knowing what is the next step. How did you decide to take that next big step? What was the epiphany that really drove that?
I think one of the fundamental things is looking at how our business is changing. Like many segments of business, there's consolidation happening where the smaller companies are being gobbled up by larger companies. So that's one. So the more efficient companies are the survivors. So I knew we had to increase our efficiency no matter what. We had to be very aggressive at being the survivor and not the laggard. Usually in this sort of field, when you realize you're behind, it's usually too late. And that's one of the hardest things. We often talk about leading edge versus bleeding edge, and nobody wants to be on the bleeding edge, but you better be on the leading edge or you'll be left behind. And so for me, fundamentally, it was all about changing faster than our competitors were changing and creating the future that I could see plain as day was ahead of us. If I think forward 5 and 10 years, and I think if most people watching this think forward 5 to 10 years, they can draw a pretty clear picture of what things will be automated, how things will be done. Even, we often talk about mass producing a quantity of one. So even if you're designing and fabricating something truly unique or one-off, as we might say, that thing, you want to use the techniques of mass production, and you want to be able to do it like you are making 10,000 of that one thing. And if you can do that, then you're the most efficient player out there. And that's what these tools, to me, that's what they help us reach, and that's what they make possible.
I think it's interesting that you talk about it as a journey, because there's no silver bullet, there's no snapping your fingers and you're going to make this change. You've got to decide, I think, what your long-term goals are, but then what's that first big step, and have the courage to go there, but also the partners. Coming back to that, and I think that's what we've been able to do in the past 3 years together with starting with the discussion with you and Michael.
Yeah, and I would say, speaking of the partnership, one thing that's particularly meaningful to me is the way that EPLAN and Rittal together really have this laser focus on this space of electrical design and fabrication. Are there other pieces? There's pneumatics. There are other pieces for sure. But that's the world we live in, okay? It's building panels, and we need that to be end-to-end, fully integrated. As a leader, I'm trying to break down the walls completely so the fabricators understand what went into the design, and they understand that process, and they're communicating fluidly, and the designers understand the fabrication process. And then it's all data-driven. It's not drawing-driven. It's driven by data. And then we can achieve the pinnacle of efficiency. That's the only possibility. And that's a radically different approach from, say, 10 years ago, where you had a design silo and then you had a fabrication silo. We're sitting out here in the fabrication shop right now, and I'm proud as punch of what we've been able to accomplish out here, because it's made the work much more meaningful for the people that work out here. Now, instead of manually doing a lot of things really well, they can have an impact over a much higher volume. So that lets the company impact more customers in a positive way, but it lets the individual employee here have a bigger and bigger impact on the work that we do. And those are both actually equally critical, because that's a healthy organization that has a bright future. And that's, nothing is more important to me than that. The most important thing to realize is that everybody matters in this process, and the leader helps set the vision, and I see that role from my own chair very easily. But there are so many times in my 25 years of managing this company that I've had a vision and no way to make it possible. And as a leader, there's nothing more frustrating than that. And yet, whose fault is that? That's the leader's fault. And so making a great change requires all of us, okay? And really, as I've said, the ones who move it are the ones who actually do the design, do the fabrication, manage the areas, and starting to see what is possible is certainly all of our job, but then learning about those tools, informing each other. The magic happens when you have multiple people in different roles, all sharing a reasonably the same vision, but also knowing what's possible. Okay, so the training in the tool. So we've all used software, we've all used spreadsheets where we, year after year, maybe we knew just enough to do that same thing over and over, and we knew maybe 5% of the tool. It's really getting to know. It's like, know the tools so that you can have a conversation about what's possible for next year, for us to be like next year. Maybe we don't use it on this project, but we start to see how we could change our organization when we know what our tools are capable of. And also, I spoke of the guidance that EPLAN gave me in looking at certain operations, there's always an organization, no matter what you do, there's always somebody who's better at something you do. Even if you're the best at A, there may be B and C that you do that somebody else is bigger, faster, more efficient, whatever. You may be the king of the hill on A, but B and C, there's somebody else. In everything you do, you should be looking at who is exceptional at that thing. And it doesn't mean you go copy that. Or you may not want to be that, but you can learn from that. And to me, that's what we all should be doing, because we're in a time of tremendous change. All of us need to contribute to our local economy, to our companies, and to the world. And so to do that, we've all got to be learning. We should be learning everything we can and then collaborating to make this future happen.
Well, Wright, thanks again for sharing your vision with us, your comments. I think it's highly valuable, sharing your journey and hoping that others can learn from where you are in that. It's always a thought-provoking discussion when we get together, and I hope anyone out there who's watching and listening can certainly contact us, contact you directly at A&E Engineering, and we look forward to having you back again in the future.
I'd be happy to, and I just want to reiterate what a positive change the EPLAN organization and the Rittal organization has had on the growth and development of our company. You guys have helped me view the context in which we operate differently. You've helped me view the potential for our company differently. You've helped train our people, and you've helped all of us achieve greater things in the last 3 years, and greater things using EPLAN in the last 3 years than we did in the previous 12. And that's as a leader, that's what we want. That's what any leader wants, and I'm just thrilled to be doing it with the EPLAN team.